Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint Podcast. I'm Will.
And I'm James. And Will, you're not in Kansas anymore. Do you want to tell us where you are at this moment in time?
Yeah, I'm down in Hobart at the moment for the IBD conference. It's been really fun to be down here so far. Get to meet a lot of people. It's obviously a little different from BrewCon. It's pitched a bit more so to larger breweries and also distilleries, obviously. But it's been good to catch up with a lot of craft brewers too. So it's been a really fun ride so far.
Yeah, great.
Sadly, some people have left because of the hurricane that's coming into Brisbane. So we'll see
Yes.
what happens there.
Yeah, fingers crossed everyone's okay up that way. Well, having gone from seeming like we were living in each other's pockets for a couple of weeks, all those recordings, we haven't actually, we've had like ships in the night recently, with me just getting back from Sydney a few days ago. But I understand you've been keeping busy, not just the conference, but sitting down with a few people for future podcast episodes as well.
Yeah. We'll let's keep it a secret maybe, but we're recording a lot of podcasts at the moment. Got a very full schedule over the next couple of days, a few international guests, some guests from down here, so keep an eye out for them in coming months.
And I hear you and Craig have been there. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're the podcast guys down there as well." So clearly, it's getting out there.
It's weird. I feel like I've had more compliments about the podcast, and we've only been doing it for well
Eight
under a
months.
year than I ever got in my whole time of writing for the Crafty Pie. Obviously, it's a bit different because I feel like there wasn't very many photos of me out there pre-podcast, and a lot of people wouldn't have known my voice. So I think I could sort of keep a lower profile at events like this. But now, unfortunately, because of my loud, booming voice, it seems like I'm catching a lot of attention.
Your cover is blown, Will. Well, hopefully that's a good thing. Is it? Was it all publicity is good publicity? So there we go. Anyway, back to the task at hand. I guess a week on from us discussing, I guess the pretty poorly received initial announcement or initial, I guess, election promise by Labor. They were back at it again a few days ago, sort of upping their offering to an extent, and I guess to an extent, sort of introducing some of the stuff that had been asked for. But again, it just feels like a bit of a almost half measure. Like it's not really potentially going to solve all the problems or a lot of the problems for a lot of people.
Yeah, so freezing the excise rate from going up on just draft only beer. So I mean, we put the announcement out there on the weekend, and immediately, and the obviously people who suffer from this at bottle shops. Platinum Liquor, who are one of the long-standing family-run bottle shops in Sydney, that they just commented, "Well, I guess we'll go die then, will we?"
Yeah,
Like, and it is a bit like, okay, who is this good for? Probably it's good for pubs. It's good for the big pub lobbies who have been pushing for it for a long time, and it's good for breweries that already have a lot of the market access through pubs, which is a lot of that's the biggest breweries.
yeah, for sure. I saw one of the guys from Coastal Brewing Co. In New South Wales commenting, just going, "Well, what if you don't really have taps and you're all in pack? Like it makes no difference to them." So
Yeah,
once again, like it feels like two steps forward, one step back to an extent. Like again, what's the sort of this the smallest measure we can do to sort of move forward from what we did last week? But again, I suppose on the positive side of things, it does mean it's being talked about, like, and the amount of media coverage again that it's getting is hopefully says to people this is a significant issue that you need to be focusing on. And I think a lot of people in the beer industry are like, well, it sort of buys us time. Like if this happens, it's something, So
yeah, it's a conversation we're having a lot down here at the moment. Everyone we're talking to does. There is that sense that it is good that this is getting attention. I don't. It feels like this the expense of beer and the cost of it now and the cost of producing it, like it's really cutting through, and it's kind of that thing that's summing up the cost of living crisis we're still in and we're still feeling
yeah,
it is such a lightning rod that so many people are aware of. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next. Obviously, we're not even in an election at the moment, or who knows, one might be called by the time this podcast comes out. Unlikely. It's looking at probably in April, but a lot more could happen in this place. The coalition, the opposition, they've pledged to match it, but they haven't really made announcements of their own at the moment. I think they probably will, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the campaign. I think, yeah, there's obviously so much attention on it, which is a really good thing unfortunately, it's not significant change.
No, well, hopefully it becomes a tit for tat, week by week, up until the election, until eventually the indie brewers and distillers get everything they could possibly want. But even somewhere between where we are now and that would be, I think, appreciated rather than these really sort of carefully measured little steps that might sound good as sound bites for 7 News, but aren't actually really helping the people that employ most people in the beer industry in Australia.
Yeah, I would hope that craft breweries put a bit of a ban on politicians who aren't making good commitments. Don't let them turn up to that brewery for a photo shoot during the election. I don't want to see Albo in with Willie the Boatman. I think until there's like significant, good, proper announcements, I hope that they don't try and make the most of them holding a beer and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
because politicians do love that during an election.
They certainly do. Well, aside from that, we had the Royal Queensland Awards last week. Slipstream Brewing, with their classic saison, took out the top gong. I know Mick, one of our writers based up in Queensland, is a big fan of everything that Slipstream do, so he'll have been pretty chuffed. But it was kind of good timing for us as well because Mick had actually been putting together an article on their youngest brewer for part of our Slays beer series, sort of focusing on the younger people in the beer industry. Like, I guess what the series is all about, talking to young in the industry. How did they get into beer? What can beer do better to bring more young people in? And yeah, John's the Slipstream's green beer man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very interesting view. I kind of think of Slipstream, and I generally think of like West Coast and lagers and things like that. Quite very well executed styles that are beers that are kind of two styles. So it was cool to
Not
see
not
some.
not lurid green beers made with pandan, But no, it was nice timing for us. I know Mick had been working on that for a while, and I guess it's almost the start of award season to an extent. The ABA's submissions are due to close this Friday, so especially if you're in the beer writing, beer media, anywhere in that industry, we've been sponsoring the Beer Media Trophy from day one, help put that all together. So if you are writing, commenting, doing anything in the beer media, whether it's traditional media, online, socials, whatever it might be, make sure you get your entries in by this Friday. It's free to enter for beer media. The more the merrier from our point of view, because I guess that's why I wanted to start the award in the first place, was to encourage more people to do what we do, so that in a few, any time in the future, you could be the next Will Zeeble at the IBD with people going, I know that guy.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate. I'll get to judge it this year as the previous winner. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've done it once before, and it was a really good experience to
Yeah.
to get to like engage with people's writing or videos or podcasts or things like that in a way I haven't before.
Yeah. So if anyone's keen to enter, head to the Melbourne Royal website, look for the Australian International Beer Awards, and off you go. Now, again, this year's been a little bit of a choppy one, shall we say? But we had a nice little run of stories last week that were sort of all positive, openings or long-awaited openings or reopenings or purchases. So I got to visit one of them on, I think I lose track now, last Wednesday or Thursday. Popped into Bracket Brewing's new home. Sort of pretty much, it's technically Marrickville, but very close to Enmore. They were forced to move due to a pretty hefty rent hike on their original place in Alexandria. Have to say, co-founder and head brewer Mike was looking very, very tired. He's got
He
he's a three.
sounded tired when I spoke to him on the phone as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, the sweat had sort of dried off them a little bit by the time we got a couple of photos in front of the brewery. But him and his brewer Eric, I think they're just sort of not just trying to fill all the taps, but doing a lot of other stuff around there. But yeah, they seem pretty excited. They had like an unofficial soft opening the weekend before and got about 70 or 80 people in. They said about a lot of interest from locals walking past. It's allowed them to rebrand, and sort of they'll have a better space ultimately once it's finished. So that was pretty cool. But then you then spoke to a couple of others that had big weekends or big news last week.
Yeah, well, there was also, I mean, Guy Southern in WA spoke to Rocky Ridge about the opening of their Perth venue, which we spoke about a little bit with Hamish on the podcast, one of our very early episodes last year. So that's finally been realised. lot of excitement for that, unsurprisingly. They're a very popular brewery in WA, and the area they've gone into, I think, was sort of crying out for that a bit, but it's also near a number of other craft breweries. And after we ran that story, I remember saying to you, I was like, oh, there's going to be a bit of positive news to kick off the podcast with next week. And then all of a sudden, Evan Cray from Bright Brewery, the head of sales and brand, sent us through the news that they bought a pub in Melbourne.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Prince Alfred PAs. I think back in your day at University of Melbourne, Will,
I
it was a classic student pub. I know not in the early days of Crafty Pint. Someone was trying to push it in a crafty direction. So yes, I mean, yeah, you know all about this, but essentially, I remember speaking to Scott Brandon, founder of Bright, a while ago. He'd been looking for other venue options for quite some time. Like they've obviously built this absolutely incredible regional venue, brew pub up in Bright on the Ovens. But yeah, they've been looking for a long time and now decided to plonk themselves down pretty much in the heart of Melbourne.
yeah. No, I've had probably more Palmers in PAs than I have in most other parts of Melbourne. I used to hang out there a lot in the university days. But yeah, and Evan was very open as well that this isn't the end for them. He was quite open to say that we will look for other venues. That they're running that part of the business really well, and
Mhm.
obviously it's a beautiful venue in the high country, but one of its main challenges is the fact that it's about 4 hours from Melbourne. This literally gives them a new opportunity, and I like it's an interesting approach we are seeing with other breweries like Bodrigi and not the Punters Club, sorry, the Albion Hotel. Um, they're keeping Brighter keeping it as PAs as well,
Mhm.
so it'll still have its history. It'll still be a student pub. It'll sell all the Bright's beers, but then they'll have the rooftop will be a bit more Bright Brewery focused.
Mhm. Sounds great. Excellent. Now, before we get to the main chat this week, um, update on our first Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month, which was Cypher Brewing from Canberra last week. Will, you had a bit of an update on that one?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet Lucy down here, who's one of the brewers at Cypher, and she told me that we called the beer Una last week, and it's actually Yuma, which is the Ngunnawal word for welcome. So thank you, Lucy, for correcting me on that, and yeah, congrats again for being Bluestone's Brewery of the Month. That I was stoked with it. Lucy was really happy with it, but she was also keen to correct me. So of course,
Yeah,
I will do that.
giving with one hand, taking with the other. No, well, if you want to nominate any other breweries from anywhere in Australia, just jump online to craftypint.com/bluestone. And I guess our other sort of campaign in that theme that we're running with Rallings. Have you done a Rallings? We've got the second round of winners coming up later in the show. This is celebrating good beer citizens, people who've done gone above and beyond for anyone else in the beer industry, or just helped out some mates, or just doing something really positive. If you'd like to nominate someone there, again, craftypint.com/rallings, which is RALLINGS. Today's main guests, Will.
Yeah, two bays. We drove down there a couple of weeks ago to catch up with founder Richard Jeffers and Christian Martin, the head brewer, who's actually down here at IBD at the moment. So I've been spending a bit of time with him. Before two bays, Christian was head brewer at Mornington Peninsula, and he was there during the sale to Tribe as well. We kind of get into that a little bit later in the chat. So I just wanted to make sure people are aware of his brewing history. And yeah, obviously we're about to kick off Free the Taps, or rather Two Bays, which is an awesome celebration of gluten free beer.
Yeah, that's right. They've got a number of tap takers all over the country, tied in with Celiac Awareness Week. And yeah, we wanted to get the chat in now because they're still reigning best gluten-free brewers in the world after picking up a gold medal at the World Beer Cup in the States last year. So yeah, it's really good chat. Richard got into it because he was diagnosed celiac late in life. We go into how they did the research to start the brewery, sort of the challenges of brewing with non-barley grains, and their beers are tasting fantastic. They've got a new beer out this week ahead of Free the Taps as well. We tried it from the tank at the brewery, and it was tasting banging. So yeah, really great chat. So yeah, without further ado, because we've had a fair bit to discuss at the start today, and I'm sure you've got things to be doing in Hobart this evening, Will. So before we head off,
Yeah, well, if you enjoy the chat, make sure you don't just tell me when you see me. Make sure you like, subscribe, and give the feedback online as well, so we can shoot up those sort of Spotify and Apple charts. But yeah, enjoy the chat. Cheers.
Cheers.
Beer, music, and food lovers, rejoice because tickets are on sale for the 10th annual High Country Hop Festival in Beechworth. Taste fresh hop harvest beers from Australia's best indie brewers: Bridge Road Brewers, Mountain Culture, Range, Wildflower, Love Shack, and Kaiju. Plus the High Country's famed local breweries, winemakers, craft distillers, and more. See Japanese Good Time Rockers, the 5678s, in their only not yet sold out Victorian show, alongside ARIA winner Kait and folk legend Darren Hanlon, with an inspired food lineup headlined by some of Australia's most inventive chefs and iconic Box Wars workshops for kids. It's a family-friendly day out. An unmissable beer, food and music festival for all. Saturday, March 22nd in High Country Beechworth. Tickets on sale now at thehighcountryhop.com.au. Hosted by Bridge Road Brewers.
Richard and Christian, thanks for joining us.
Welcome to Two Bays.
Yeah, pleased to be. Great to have you guys down here.
Yeah, good to be here again.
To the craft beer capital of Australia, dare I say.
What, Dramana?
No, the Mornington Peninsula. I just want to throw it out there to be provocative at the start.
Yeah.
Oh,
That'll get people tweeting.
As if gluten-free's not bad enough, right?
I reckon we should start with last year's big triumph. I don't know if you'd take us back to the World Beer Cup in the States. Anyone that I guess isn't aware of it's the biggest beer competition in the world, and you came up with a gold, which isn't just like a gold medal in many awards. It means your beer is the best in that category on the planet. So how was that?
From my perspective, it was pretty amazing. I mean, like we were in the States to see our suppliers and and Christian hadn't been over there. So we were over there for another reason. And then suddenly it was the end of the CBC and it was World Beer Cup. And I'd actually forgotten about it a little bit, to be honest. And you go in this room, 15,000 people or something sitting around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's very different to the ABAs as
Suddenly
well.
you got to get up on stage and I'm like, there's a lot of people.
And then they kind of went, third, second, and then suddenly it was us, and we were with all the dedicated
HBA
gluten-free
crew.
people and the HBA crew, and it was brilliant. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. We had emotions must have been pretty like we stood taken aback or just like, oh, this is actually when you were making great beer, like what went through your head at the time, because it's pretty.
I'll hand over to the man who actually made it. Although there's conjecture about who actually brewed that batch.
The big feeling was just being, representing Australia in a way. Like I would encourage other Australian breweries to enter because I think we make some awesome beer. But that was the big feeling for me. It was also great to be able to do it for Richard. I mean, we were there for a trip. Awesome experience. We've been to Denver, Oakland, Seattle, traveling around already. Plus I was going to CBC, which was really important to me. So be able to do it for him and see the emotions that came with it was awesome. Yeah. But it was just great to do it for Australia as well. And the team here, I think, like just knowing that you would come back, chat to the team and how they all felt and getting the messages was really fantastic. So
yeah, it was pretty emotional. I must admit, I phoned my wife afterwards. It was pretty emotional, but it was. I mean, it's surreal, really. And you kind of then see who else has won it, and you realize, you're in incredible company.
Yeah.
And so the brewers, we knew the guys make great beer. We found that at the Indies the year before, but we've known it for a while. But to actually come up against other and know that you're true to style and all the other things that go on with it was a fantastic experience.
And did you get to chat to many of the American gluten-free brewers afterwards? And they were like, did they get to try beer?
Cost
Get
me
any
a
feedback
fortune.
that way?
Went out to some bar. HBA turned up. Cost me a fortune. Luckily, they bought me breakfast the next day in return. But
more so leading up to it, we'd actually met other gluten-free brewers. That was part of the experience, and that was really rewarding as well.
Yeah. Do you try and keep a close sort of community in a
It
way?
has
Or how
been
does
tried.
it feel?
There's a lot of challenges going on in the US right now regarding smaller hospitality businesses, which is essentially what a lot of these gluten-free brewers are.
Yeah.
So it has been a challenge. Prior to that, it was COVID. Then we're, away. So it has been really challenging. There are definitely people we maintain contact with, but more so suppliers in the industry rather than actual other gluten-free brewers. They were super accommodating when we were there. We found out on the day that we went to visit Buckwild hours after we left, before we were coming back for beers, that they are actually unfortunately closing down.
So we met him at lunchtime. We went for a snooze in the afternoon. This was in San Francisco and Oakland.
A snooze because you were
Because
jet lagged?
we just
No,
arrived
no,
at
'cause
7
you had
o'clock.
too many beers
No,
in
we'd
the
arrived
morning.
at 7 o'clock in the morning, went straight there for lunch. Met the guy, fantastic, really, really engaging, talking the positivities about it. All we all agreed to catch up later that night. Went for a snooze, woke up at 3, and suddenly there was this thing to the broader gluten-free, community. Sorry to tell you, I'm closing in a week, and so we went back that night. The beers were great. It was just such a shame. He'd invested a lot.
Fantastic. Gluten-free fair. The place was packed too, as well in Oakland, where we went to. I obviously had this whole list, the whole trip that Richard had to follow me along to other non-gluten-free breweries as well. But
with his stash of 2 base cans in his hand.
We kept those visits very short.
but we went to a few other breweries that night, and it was the busiest brewery in the area by far. We went to, I think, Original Pattern.
Yeah,
and Modern
with that Aussie
Times.
guy that was their brewer there. Yeah,
an Aussie guy there, but it was by far the busiest brewery in the area as well. So his main complaint was that in order to stay busy, he has to meet the prices of barley brewers in the US, and that's very much the experience they have here.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get on to prices later, but we don't feel or haven't felt we have needed to do that in Australia, that people understand that there is a
Premium
gluten-free
involved.
premium involved.
Yeah.
But it's very expensive for them to do that, and they lose margin, and it has really cost them in the long run, I think, for some of those brewers. Others seem to be doing quite well. Or reasonably well. So it was good to see thriving tap rooms were a consistent thing across all the gluten-free breweries we visited.
Yeah.
And I mean, compared to, other barley breweries we visited, I would say they were more thriving in some respects. So that was awesome. It doesn't seem like there's as many gluten-free options as restaurants there as well, traveling with Richard. So I think these little gluten-free hubs there are super important to the scenes, particularly in big cities, for people to go if they ask, they do have celiac disease or are trying to avoid gluten.
So we're quite lucky here in Australia then, because my daughter's celiac, and so since she was diagnosed 11, 12 years ago, even in that time, you realise how much easier it's been to get gluten-free food and how much greater the understanding is. But it sounds like it's not as progressive in the States.
America's actually really terrible.
Okay,
it's amazing, really, but yeah, terrible. From a person trying to find somewhere safe to go and eat, and you go to these bars, and they're kind of like, you're really going, man, maybe I'll just skip this meal here and go and catch it somewhere else. But then you've got, for me, obviously we found a place in San Francisco. I was actually talking to a celiac guy. He's going there shortly this morning, saying, I'll tell you where to go because we can get there. The food was good. You could kind of get a beer, and you just keep going back. So we just went back to the same bar in Vegas. Sorry, not San Francisco, Vegas. Every night.
Yeah.
Spent a fortune. But it was the only place to go. There was 150 beers for the other guys to drink, and I could have 3, and it was great.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of how the beauty of the gluten-free consumer is that we're very, very loyal if we find somewhere that's good to go to. But the gluten-free brewers, I probably stay in contact with the owners of the breweries quite a bit. We're working on a couple of projects that hopefully might come off, and we'll certainly tell Crafty about it when it does. But it's they are pretty good, but it's tough. The US is no different to over here in the beer world. So they've been going through some challenges. A lot of them are very small and have closed, or really are not commercial. They all try and live and die by their hospitality offering, which we made a decision early on that it was never going to be certainly not down in Dramata the be all and end all. But for them it's really important part of what they do, because they can't get the distribution depth that you can get over here as easily. So, but they're all good. We're very collegiate. They're probably not as collegiate with themselves, but because I'm not a competitive threat at all. The Americans are very competitive.
Expanding, taking 2 base globally.
So we share quite a lot, and they were fantastic for when I started and wanted to understand how to do things, or when AG first came on board, we sent him over there and he brewed with them. Very, very accommodating.
Yeah. And in terms of when you got back over here, did the win help you get Session Ale or any of your other beers out a bit further? Was there that sort of cachet? Because we do hear sometimes with awards over here, like breweries. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You can win all these awards, and outside the industry,
I contacted a large retailer and said, "Hey, we're now the world's best gluten-free beer," and they kind of said,
"Well done,
congratulations! It's a really nice beer. See you next year in the range review. Maybe talk about it then."
Bring your costs down.
From that perspective, it was probably disappointing. I mean, obviously the session ale's in at the MCG, which we might talk about a bit later, and so it does really well there. And so we know people love it, and we've got it into, then subsequent venues on the back of that sort of distribution. But from a retail perspective, it's been quite frustrating. There's the push to lower alcohol. It's a mid-strength. There's, gluten-free, push to, the demographic that's younger demographics. A lot of them are gluten-free. It sort of ticks what we thought were lots of boxes.
Yeah. And it is delicious.
And we think it's delicious. And but it hasn't. It has certainly lifted, and online it's our biggest seller. It is our biggest seller apart from a limited.
Hard to know if that's due to MCG, the taste, or the award, but there was definitely a lot of promotion that we did.
Yeah.
So people who come through our online store are definitely drawn to that beer a lot more, than other ones that would be considered around the same level. It seems to do well. I think it's our third bestseller. Is that right?
I think online it's almost our best outside of our mixed packs.
Yeah.
So it's great. People want it, and so we know, like everything in the beer world, it's time, repeat.
Yeah.
It's everything in sales. It's repeat, and then hopefully you'll get that day where one of the retailers or the big independents say, "Yep, we'll take it." Yep.
And is that how it worked with the MCG as well, in terms of, because obviously that would be Delaware North.
North, yep.
Operation, or was it just constant conversations, or how to sort of break that barrier, because it is a huge barrier?
You want the truth, or you? So obviously it's a CUB contract, right? So you, for any other, of course they're not contracted, but for every other brewery, not a Hope, they just ordered, and we phoned them up and took us a while to find out who to talk to, and said, "What are you planning on doing?"
Yeah.
And it was just before a Boxing Day test a couple of years ago, and suddenly they just placed an order with Paramount, and we sort of went, MCG. That
must be a mistake.
That's pretty cool. What do you do? Have you got like a wedding or an event or whatever? And then he said, "No, we decided that we're going to put you in every single bar next for the cricket and for the next footy season." I think we started off in their corporate areas for that summer, and then from there, but. It wasn't, I'd like to say we've spent 5 years talking to plenty of others. We just picked up the Mariner Group, which is a big venues type thing in Melbourne. Fantastic group, but we started that conversation at one of those events, I think one of your events in Fed Square, many years ago, was when we first met the Mariner Group. That's taken a while to incubate. Yeah. This one just turned up, and they're fantastic. They just got a text before on what their first order is going to be for the footy season in March. So, they're pretty good at communicating with us and the Paramount guys. And it's just so exciting. To be able to go to the footy. I used to go to the footy and drink water because Mad Geelong, we go every week with the kids, drink water for 5 years. Now it costs me a fortune because I'm sitting there drinking beers. Luckily, my kids don't drink, so they can drive me home. That's what it's all about, being able to do that sort of stuff. And so it's been really important. And on the back of that, we've got into Amy Park, which is another stadium down here, which is sort of rugby soccer. We just started getting to the tennis centre. So, we're starting to work on those big stadiums that are sort of recognising, and events. We just managed to get into the Fringe Festival in Adelaide this year, where, again, consumers going, my argument's always, I pay the same ticket price as everybody else. Just give me the same experience. Obviously, I'm getting the entertainment, but I actually want the entertainment with the experience of sitting there with friends or family and being able to, enjoy a beer, same as everybody else. I don't want to be sitting on a glass of wine or
I'm sure the other
cider.
Stadiums or other, I guess, hospo businesses dealing with those bigger venues wouldn't be putting more orders in if it wasn't pulling through. So clearly people are, I was going to buy it because it's the only indie beer when I was at the Women's Ashes the other day, but I could see people go out and coming away with cans of the Session Ale. I don't know where I can't imagine they were all celiac.
No, not at all.
I imagine they're looking, going, I know this is going to have a flavour I like, and I'm supporting a small brewery. I reckon there's enough people out there that know that's the choice they're making when they buy that.
It's definitely not celiacs. It's definitely not, so that there is something much bigger at play. We call them 2 bays in the wild. We're sitting there going, somebody's got one over there. And I often feel like I'm going to walk up and say, "Hey, are you celiac, gluten-free, whatever." But the kids grab me and tell me sit down. But I think it's just that, the sell-through is clearly good. I mean, we've, MCQ shared some data with us. Yeah. The sell-through is more than enough every summer. This summer was much bigger with the bigger tests going on. wait for the Ashes next year. So it's working. And Amy Park is selling a lot more than they used to of the previous beer that was in there. They know it's working. And we support it too with as much promotional work as we can.
Yeah.
Respecting obviously CEB and what they're doing. We certainly trying to make sure that if you're going to that event, you can get a beer if you choose to.
Yeah. Is that what you always hope to see a beer, or has it surprised you that it's made it into those kind of larger places?
I think I think every liquor license, I want to be able to go anywhere. I'm getting closer to retirement. I'm thinking I want to travel around Australia. I want to go to an outback pub.
Yeah.
And we can do that at the Prairie Hotel and the Flinders Rangers, for example. It's probably about it. There's somewhere in Alice Springs, but I just want to be able to go somewhere, and be able to sit there and have a beer with everybody else there and not actually look like the guy that's different to everybody else. So I always think that all stadiums should have it, and they don't, because we get lots of people that are saying, why can't you get into Optus Stadium? Why can't you get into the Adelaide Oval? And people will go to those people. And we think over time, they'll work it out. They'll then order some, they'll give it a try. But the success with the G was they put it in every single bar. If you put it into 2 bars and you're trying to expect a consumer to walk halfway around the MCG for a beer, well, they've lost interest well and truly before then. So they put it into every bar and it just sold socks off.
Yeah. When Richard interviewed me, and this is a long time ago, but I got a keen memory.
I don't.
I was very concerned about authenticity when it came to brands and stories and those sorts of things. And I asked him, what his goals were around 2 bays and stuff. And I told him that I meant more than just, what, where the business is going, but what he's trying to sell. And he said, well, his goal was straight and simple for every license in Australia to carry a gluten-free option in beer category.
Yeah.
It could be O'Brien's, it could be us. He didn't even care at the time if it was maybe, some we didn't like so much with gluten-free beer, but they need to fucking carry a gluten-free beer if they want to walk through the door, because there's nothing worse being part of a cheers and you're not involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was the big thing for him. It was his sort of, I considered that when we did some brand development stuff later, the real mantra of the brand was that every venue in Australia should have an option for gluten-free beer for the gluten-free consumer.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I think it's very true. As as a parent of someone with celiac disease, you do appreciate that. Like Matilda wouldn't see half the work that goes on, especially on the road on holiday somewhere, working out where we can go for a meal or whatever, especially checking on the fries, all that kind of stuff. Because much as I'm sure you've got used not to showing disappointment, whatever, you're like, it can make you feel different, or not included, can't it? If you can't have the same experience. And we try so hard, you can't be 100% of it. We try so hard for her not to ever have to feel that way, or as much as possible. If someone can sort of empathise from that perspective, it's like, why would you not have gluten-free options everywhere?
Well, nearly everybody knows somebody who's gluten-free in some shape or form, whether it's by choice or by medical need. So you don't have to go too far in your friendship group to find that. But it is very, I made a big deal. We were down at Anglesey a couple of weekends ago. I said, I want to go to the Aries Inlet because there's a tea house there that makes the best toasties. Yeah. And 3 years ago, I was able to have this mushroom toastie, and I convinced these groups, let's go. But then they said, well, actually, we now make them off-site. We bring them in on normal bread. But if you want it, we can, put the insides into a gluten-free piece of bread. And I go, well, that's not going to cut it. They were very good about it. I mean, they understood the issue. And so suddenly I'm having a ham and cheese toastie, and I'd spent all morning and half the night before thinking about this lovely mushroom toastie. Yeah. And so you do get disappointed, but you kind of work and you appreciate that people are making an effort. Yeah. I was at Rice Paper Scissors and they said we just put our gluten-free, celiac-friendly fryer in. So you understand the businesses are trying and they can't be everything to everybody as long as they've got choice. Yeah. A can of beer in the fridge though, when I see places stayed at a hotel in the city and there's 8 or 9 different barley beers in the fridge and there's heaps normal, obviously, from a zero out perspective. But if you want the gluten-free one, you got to go to the outside bar. And I'm kind of like going, really? One little row. Just one row. Surely people don't need 8 different choices. We're not talking about a craft beer bar. This was just a bar. But then other places, Hotel National and Hardware Lane, we're on 5 levels there with a beer on every tap. Yeah.
Yes, you've been talking about like promotional activities. Is that something you feel you have to sort of keep doing constantly to keep getting the word out there? I know you've got Free the Taps coming here. You want to tell us a little bit about what Free the Taps is? It's been going for a number of years, but is it sort of a constant need to keep putting it out there? there to get hospitality venues to buy in or whatever it might be?
I think interesting with Free the Taps is that the same hospitality venues that did year one are pretty much all still on board if they're still in business, and then we just added to it. So, the guys at Brewski still refer to it as one of their best tap takeovers. The guys at Sweeney and Sydney, same thing.
And so it's like a full tap taker of just all.
It varies. So Sweeney's will do 12 beers. Other places we might do 3 or 4, depending on the venue. We don't feel the need. It's more about wanting to give back to our community. To be honest, it's. I mean, it shows a publican, that there's people that will come in, and if they find their venue a safe venue to go to, then it's a good thing. But a lot of those venues will put us on, and then we'll go back into package for the rest of the year. So it's not like you retain sort of tap retention perspective. We just think it's an opportunity for us to let our consumer be able to go to the pub and get a better experience than what they can get down here, but they can't come down here to do it. So if you're in Sydney, you can go to Sweeney's, you sit on their fantastic rooftop, you have 12 beers, all our core range plus everything limited that we possibly can give him, because that the 12 beer taps is about our limit. But it's just that give back, really. And they'll be fantastic supporters, but they support us because they know it works for them as well. And it's just that thing, when we do our limited releases, yes, there's a marketing sugar hit that goes with it, and we do 3 or 4 of those a year. But, they take a lot of planning. Like we've got the malts on the water for what we're going to release in May, and we know what we're going to release in September because we need the malts to be coming for those. Because we import them, I should say, from the US. So you sort of a lot of planning ahead. But for even with our limited releases, it's more about getting a consumer to taste what a red IPA is, or a Cerveza that you may or may not have drunk a Corona, depending on your beliefs around gluten free or not. But it just allows them to try the beers that all you guys are all lucky enough to have. At every venue you could possibly walk to, probably. So it's that sort of thing that drives us more than anything else. And usually, I mean, you guys had the steam beer before. Grant said he'd like to brew steam beer, so the brewers get to do something interesting. I've never tried a steam beer, so I was very excited about it. And it's a fantastic beer. And, the team, proud that they brewed it. It's true to style, and it shows us as a consumer set, how interesting beer can be.
Yeah.
And that's what drives us more than it probably... anything else.
Have you found any concern or fear from venues about putting a beer of yours on tap? Just that, contamination, whatever it might be, even though they hopefully are cleaning their taps through, their lines through every few weeks.
Specific information around that. It's written on the keg collar as well to remind them, and I believe that we should have some information they can go, like a PDF or whatever they can use.
Our sales guys do have one.
Sales guys. It was an early concern of mine when I started. It was actually, what about a tap point? That's where your biggest risks might be. So we've worked hard to try and educate people when they are pouring a beer that was previously on barley beer to actually clean the lines and then rinse it thoroughly before they switch over.
Yeah, I suppose even an event like Free the Taps, where if other publicans can look at it and go, hang on, they're pouring 12 taps of gluten-free beer, and we know that last week they were doing a Rocky Ridge tap takeover or something like that. So okay, it sort of helps overcome that sort of hurdle in their mind.
Clear the line, clear the couplet, clean the tap. Go through that process. We often, if it's just a single tap we're taking over, we'll say, give us a cider tap. And work on that side of things. But we've got probably, in our world, we're very excited. 40 or 50 pubs around the country that serve our beer all the time on tap. And they're great supporters, and they know what it does to their business. And then others will kind of come in a little bit. But, rotational taps, that's kind of probably our scariest point. If we do Free the Taps, we can control it. If it's a rotational tap, we work pretty hard with that venue to make sure they understand that they don't want to get anybody sick, and neither do we. So, we just, give them the information.
This is primarily what Celiac Awareness Week is really about to some degree. It's making people understand what the risks are. So,
and understand the risks, understand the benefit for your business, and understand, the joy you can bring to a consumer.
I was about to say the joy, because we've tried 2 or 3 of the beers, while we're here, and you could give them someone and say, hey, here's a medicine, and not say, this is a gluten-free beer, and they're going to go, that's got a beautiful, great depth of malt flavour, and have no idea that this is made with, malted rice and millet and whatever.
I've yet to have one of your beers that I've sort of known have really had a completely different malt profile to barley beer or traditional beer.
Yeah, and as the owner, because everyone says, "Oh, can you brew the beer?" When I talk to people who own a brewery, and they go, "No idea." So I've just been incredibly fortunate that we've got, Chris has been now with us. We were just saying before, nearly 5 years, and the other two with Grant and Stephen as part of our team. Grant's been here nearly 2 years, I think. So we've got
Grant a bit longer.
good, longevity, and our sales team have been around for 4 or 5 years because they all believe. What we're doing for the sort of the feedback they get is so positive that they just enjoy working here relative to other choices they could do. And these guys make beer, so I get huge satisfaction when I go I hear back from people who drink thousands of different beers can say your beers are absolutely true to style because I got no idea. And Christian goes, this is what a Pacific Ale tastes like.
Celiac in the business as well, so everyone who's work here is non-celiac, and I don't think that anyone particularly avoids gluten across the whole business.
No,
so
barbecue days are tough.
But like none of the guys are particularly worried about it. I don't think in any major regard. But I think the brand story is very authentic, and why they're doing it is very clear.
Yeah, none of you've got baguettes in the boot. As soon as you get out, you go, I need my gluten fix.
We do have some rules around. Wash your beard before you go back to the boot.
If they start coming back from lunch with crumbs, I go out.
There's always thing and staff Christmas parties as well. And events that we do. Everyone's got to be more and more conscious, but they appreciate it. And it helps them appreciate what they do more as well, to see Richard and some of the challenges that he faces. So it was definitely an experience for me. We're in the US. I mean, I think it's somehow a little bit easier in Australia than when being at an airport in the US and try and find something gluten free to eat. It's good luck. I mean, Doritos are nuts, and then you don't even know where it's been processed.
No, I'd love to go back to the start of the story as well. So we'll take a little break now and then come back to how you first discovered you were celiac and then started Two Bays.
Yep, that'd be good. But before we do that, let's talk about, we're doing a brand ad. Did I tell you about that?
Oh, okay. No,
so we're doing this brand ad. So for the first time, we do a whole lot of marketing. A lot of it is around what the marketers call performance marketing. So, buy this, buy that, free shipping, whatever it might be. And, our online business is a very important channel for us. And it allows consumers to get to beers that they can't buy or buy taster packs and all sorts of stuff. But we wanted to do something that was a bit more brand side of things. So we just filmed our first proper big boys and girls ad last week, so we're looking forward to that coming out in the middle of March, again for Celiac Awareness Week, and just sort of highlighting the perils of a gluten-free consumer at a pub. And it's all around the shout that doesn't leave anybody out. So it's all about, making sure that if you're a friend, bring your friend somewhere where they can get a beer, those sort of things that we just consider that choice. So it's going to be pretty good. Hopefully we've got some great actors and we paid a fortune. So
are you one of the actors?
No, I'm an extra with a hat on in the back so they can't see the ball patch.
And where's this going to be, Ed?
It'll be, I think Catch Up TV, because obviously mainstream TV is far too expensive, but Catch Up TV and YouTube ads. So one of the ones where people can't fast forward through them. You've got to watch the whole bloody thing.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Great. Well, let's just cut to a break and we'll be right back.
Can we say cheers?
Cheers.
It's time for Have You Done a Rallings? Proudly presented by the legends at Rallings Labels. For the very best digitally printed cans and cartons with no MOQ, visit rallingsprint.com.au and chat to Brad and Paul today.
Craig, we're back with another Have You Done a Rallings? Who have we got nominated recently?
Mate, we've had nominations flooding in. Of course, Have You Done a Rallings? It's all about celebrating the good beer citizens out there. It's kind of it's a way to give a shout out to someone. They might work for a brewery, they might work for a bar, they might be a supplier. It could be anyone across the whole industry. It's about celebrating the kind of collaboration and the all the good things that people do around the country. So. We've definitely had a lot more nominations coming in. I'd encourage more people to get on board. Go to craftypint.com/rallings. But I think we've got a special mention and then a winner for this week as well. Who's our special mention, Will?
Special mention, Will Tatchell from Van Diemen Brewing. Many in the industry would know Will. He's a farmer, he's a brewer, he's a beer judge, very involved in the community. He also loves his football and is involved very heavily at AFL at the state level in Tassie.
Yep.
And recently, him and a mate spent 24 hours kicking goals. That was all they did for 24 hours. I don't know how they slept or they took it in turns, how they did it, but they raised more than $13,000 for Ronald McDonald House charity, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. That's God, you'd really want to be. That's definitely not skipping leg day, is it? That's no, fantastic effort to Will Tatchell from Van Diemen Brewing. Well done.
Yeah.
And our winner for this week for the Have You Done a Rallings grand prize, which is a nice little $100 voucher from the team at Rallings Labels, Stickers and Packaging, is the one, the only Russell Steele from Easy Times Brewing in Brisbane. Russell would be very, very well known to everyone working in Queensland beer in particular. He formerly worked with the Office of Liquor and Gaming, involved very heavily in liquor licensing. And he continues to provide, an advisory service, I think, to anyone trying to navigate the often very complex Queensland liquor licensing rules. I have to say, he's helped me out both from a Gabs Festival point of view. When we started in Brisbane, he was invaluable in helping us get off the ground, and then also in my roles with other breweries. But yeah, he's a fantastic person, always there at the end of the phone. He's also a big advocate as part of the IBA and is often leading the charge there. So there you go, Russell Steele, Easy Times.
Yeah, it's kind of a thankless job, isn't it? Going to parliamentary inquiries and things like that and pushing it, but someone's got to do it, and he's the one.
That's it. Well, congratulations, Russell, and we'll put you in touch with Rallings, and I'm sure we'll see what kind of fancy, fun stickers, packaging, and labels you come up with.
Cheers.
Cheers. Need something printed, but it's only a short run? Talk to Rallings. Whether it's cans, cartons, or coasters, Rallings has a solution for you. Visit rallingsprint.com.au today.
Hi, welcome back. Now, Richard, you discovered pretty late in life that you had celiac disease. Do you want to take us back to sort of how you found it out, and then I guess the steps that led to forming Two Bays Brewing?
Yeah, sure. So 2015, July 17th. So today, a friend of mine died on that day. So it's a sort of Memorial Day for, and I had my test in the morning and I got told, and I went out and got shit-faced on beer all afternoon. and that was pretty much the last time I've drunk a Barty beer since then. So
what were the clues beforehand that you figured something
none.
up?
So the interesting thing is a lot of people are have no issues at all. For me, I used to get blood. Blood bank said you're low in a protein. Go find out why. And so when you're like that, and they say you can't have beer, pasta, bread, you go, I'm just missing out. I mean, this was pretty devastating news because I wasn't going to suddenly feel better because I felt fine. And so it was a real case of missing out. For other people, I go that they get very sick and really struggling, then it's the best thing that's ever happened to them, that joy. So everybody reacts differently. So for me, it was, just this, beer. What do you mean I can't have beer? I then sort of went and found that you do make gluten-free beer, and then O'Brien's were around, and they've been around. They are probably the longest standing gluten-free brewery in the world, I think, or pretty close to. So I went and got all their beers and tried them all. And then I started looking at what else, I can drink. I love wine. So I was fine with wine. I found I could have spirits, not massive spirit drinker unless Christian wins a golf putting tournament and we get a bottle of whiskey, in which case we all enjoy that. Or Grant does, I should say. And cider didn't really float my boat. But I got really interested in what Willie Smith and others were doing in the craft cider world for a bit. But I just kind of thought, I'm not that old and I don't want to be drinking cider for the rest of my life.
And you're also, for people that might not be aware, sort of related to Australian craft beer royalty, with your brother Steve having founded the local tap house and then co-founded Gab's Hottest 100 Stomping Ground. So I guess
Stomping Ground would have opened right around
just
then,
before.
Yeah, and so
just after.
Yeah,
sorry. So I think I was July and it was about November.
Yeah, and they got 20 odd taps and making all these amazing beers, and you'd be like, God, Damn it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it really is this, I said to my wife that my life's over, and that's the quote she remembers me saying. And it probably felt like that. But, I think I would never own a brewery if I didn't have celiac disease, right? Yeah. I mean, there's enough Barty brewers out there. You don't kind of need another one, is my opinion. So,
one in the family's enough.
Well, yeah, I would have happily, if I got mates rates, I would have been happy to keep drinking 70-gram beers or try them. But I think, the thing was in Steve said to me at one point, I was consulting, doing some consulting work, and he said, why don't you start a gluten-free brewery? And I went, that's actually not a bad idea. So then started to look, and that was kind of the journey to it all. And, is this a fad? Is gluten-free a fad? How many people are there that's out there like me or not? And that's kind of what started it. So I went and then I said to Sarah, my wife, I said, well, I've got to go to the States and go to all the gold medal winning from the American Beer Festival. So
should she go,
or whatever.
Got to?
No, she was very understanding. And I literally flew into Portland in the middle of February, and it was freezing cold. And I went straight to this brewery called Groundbreaker, and I had 9 beers in front of me within about 10 minutes of walking in. The kitchen was 100%. I could do whatever I liked.
Yeah.
And I phoned her from the bar and I said, we're on. These beers were brilliant. They were actually using lentils and chestnuts, and they were making, and it was a sorghum-based beer, and I thought, this is really interesting. Went up to caught the train up to Seattle, went to Ghostfish, even bigger tap room, bigger food offering, bigger beers, and they were using the millet, buckwheat, and rice and grouse. Straight to Colorado, then over to New York, and up to Canada. I mean, it was brilliant. Yeah. And I could do whatever I liked at all these venues, and the flavors, across what we found was that, when people were dealing with the millet, buckwheat, rice, and the all grains, the beers just had a lot more to them. Mm-hmm. In the center of the US, they're back into sorghum syrups and things, and kind of weren't really doing as much for me. So then, then I kind of got the other side, and they're back into all grain again. So, it was brilliant. So then I managed to negotiate to get the exclusive rights to the malt. So I knew we could get the ingredients, and just like any food, you got to have the best ingredients you can get. So we got those. And then I just needed money and a brewer, easy. So yeah, we kind of started, and, at the time, AG, was finishing up at Mornington, and he was happy to do consult, because of course, when you brew a beer, you brew for a day, and then you come in for about half an hour to check it through cellaring for the next few days, and then towards the end. So there was a lot of idle time, and he was just really good about being able to be flexible for what we could afford to pay. And he's a great craftsman. But I tell you, I think he was ready to quit plenty of times through this process. And we managed to get some investors together to sort of make it a reality. So the way we look at the gluten-free community continues to grow, and the number of brewers providing beer into that community is nice and contained, and there's a challenge for anybody else to try and come in and provide an alternative, and some are doing gluten reduced at the moment. My view as a consumer is just be careful, because you're sure that every beer batch you make with the Brewers Clarex is going to give you the same result, because all the data is showing that's not the case. So, we kind of just like the maths from a commercial business perspective. And yeah, we started in March 2018. We had our first beer in September. And we went to the Gluten Free Expo. We gave them 2 different pale ale choices to choose from. We were serving our first beer at 9:01 a.m. and it was brilliant. Yeah. And then when AG went back to work with Matt and reopened Tar Barrel, it's just kind of the start of COVID, wasn't it? I think. And Tribe was shutting down Mornington. And I said to AG, do you think Christian will come and work? He said, not a hope. But anyway, I managed to at least come and have a chat with me, and we've been incredibly lucky.
That was
that he's been with us
since.
What, not a hope?
He knew you loved Imperial Barrel Aged Stouts too much.
I haven't had a head brewer job that wasn't his first. So.
Yeah. So because without you got good ingredients, without good brewers, you got nothing either. So and we've got a great team. We built that around since, but. The challenge, you can talk to Christian about brewing with the ingredients we got, it's not, it doesn't seem easy anyway.
I was going to say, with that first beer, you might have got these ingredients that you'd been used to make some delicious beers in the States. but no one had been using them over here. So how did you get to sort of the first pale ales that you were happy with? A brewer AG that hadn't made those sort of beers before. Like, what were the challenges there? I guess even now, with
Probably
creating-
ask Christian because he goes through all the challenges every day. So
with new styles, I suppose, as well. Straight
Well,
away.
I mean, AG is a gifted man. I think he's a great guy. He doesn't consider himself the most technical brewer in the world, and we'll happily chat about that. But he used to come through. He came strolling through the Mornington door once, and he was asking if I could run some tests, and I can't remember what it was. Maybe he needed to alkalize or something, and he said, "How do we
probably pH.
have a whiff of this, and can I check it on your pH meter and all that sort of stuff?" And he said something along lines, "Fuck me, I've done 7 batches down the drain in the last 2 months. I don't know what I'm going to do." But he is, the craftsman is really what he really does. I can remember Mornington Brown Ale as well. It took him a lot of trials before he was happy with it. So his standards are high. I think that's an important part to his brewing philosophy. So he will happily put something down the drain if he's not happy with it. But he's very much a trial and error, focused brewer, which I think is great. I think it's awesome, and Richard probably does it because he's paying for all the grain and the beer going down the drain. But he really, the first batch of pale, I think, took him a lot of work.
Yeah.
And he, even now, I've sort of been privy to some of the email dialogues that he'd gone on with other brewers in the US, and our malt suppliers and stuff, trying to get support and just trying to land the first batch. I think was a huge challenge for him and the brewery, and a huge accomplishment as well, because he was showing me this beers, and I'm saying, mate, it's not that bad. It's not terrible. You know what I mean? Like,
that wouldn't be good enough for AG,
Well,
though.
it's not bad for gluten free.
Yeah, but, it's come a long way since there as well. But I think those early parts were a real mystery to him, and based on his brewing experience, he didn't have a lot to.
There's nowhere to go.
There was no easy answers to a lot of stuff. There was just a lot of trial and error, and then the matching process is complicated, and as well as with these gluten-free brewers, they don't all approach it in the same way. We were worlds apart from the way other brewers we speak to in the US actually brew their beers. We're worlds apart from where AG used to brew it back then. And it's, I can't just walk into a whole group of brewers and start chatting about mash regimes anymore. I kind of just stand there going, I'm aware of their processes, but I think that our processes are fairly complicated. Not complicated, but a lot different in that respect. So,
And what's it like on the pilot sort of beers and the limited releases and things like that? Like, how much trial and error is it still taking you?
There is a practical element on the pilot brew system that is a real challenge, and that's that we can't heat the mash upwards. So most pilot brew systems in a barley brewery deal with this, but it hugely affects our efficiency. So whilst I might be able to brew a really good test batch of a beer, I regularly end up with an ABV that might be significantly different from what I've aimed for. And, sometimes with a speech and a lot of confidence from the people around me, I said, it's okay. I know what I need to know to move to the big brew system. And our process up there is a lot safer. It's a lot more consistent. I've used that yeast before, and I've used the same enzymes and the same malts before. I'm confident that when we go to can, we're going to hit the ABV that we want. But the challenge we definitely have on the pilot brew system is the swinging ABVs, and it relates to temperature control on the mashing system, because it is every piece of equipment we have, for the most part, unless we've had a stainless steel welder come in with an angle grinder and modify it, is for barley brewing only. There's nothing off the shelf, and nothing was particularly bespoke when I started working here, and it's only things that we've edited that now are more adapt to our process.
And what about the ingredients when they get sent to you from the supplier in the States? Do they say, this is the equivalent of this malt and this is the equivalent of this malt? Or is it a whole different sort of palette that you're playing with?
So they like to work to the same names and that sort of stuff. It's a really complicated thing because, Biscuit, Munich, Vienna, all these words that are very similar. But the philosophies for recipe development in the gluten-free world, I'd say, are different to the philosophies I had in barley brewing world. I'm not afraid of using crystal malt in an IPA. I think it's a bit of fun when the time is right. I'm not afraid of, brewing a whole variety of different beers. It's not about that. It's just that when I use Vienna in the millet brewing world or the gluten-free brewing world, I use it as 100% base malt happily. Whereas if I was brewing a lager and so I'd say, 100% Vienna, might be a bit malty for my target. So it's you really got to get to know the malts and their equivalents in the millet world as well, and translate them back to your same brewing philosophy and say, what am I starting and finishing gravities? What kind of flavor profile do I want for the beer? And that's not easy.
Yeah, end up with some sort of little black book going, this percentage of this is actually this percentage of the same name malt in a barley brewery.
Am
kind
I
of thing.
good at documenting stuff? Some stuff,
Yeah,
but some
yeah.
stuff I'm fucking horrible. Like, I'm really bad. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We have a certain language I think that exists here in the dialogue around the gluten-free brewers, and what we talk and when we translate it is if we use a crystal malt, we tend to preference a lighter one and we'll go heavier. For example. So what are we drinking now? IPA. It has more caramel by percentage than I would probably use if I was doing a West Coast back in the barley world.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be more conservative on the barley. I do like the crystal malt in an IPA at times. Sometimes I like, you know, maybe 100% Pilsner. I'm all about variety. But when we're constructing the recipe and the dialogues around it, generally speaking, we're more heavier handed with the maltier descriptive. So Vienna malt has become our main, I'd say, ale malt. Pale malt we use for our pale, but we're also using a Goldfish one, which is, you wouldn't know. It's a trademark name that used only by a malt supplier. So some exists with a name that should translate as a like for like, but they don't necessarily translate that. Some exist as a Goldfinch name, which is by a grass supplier. It's really about celebrating millet and what it is, and I think that's been some of our focus as well over times. Yeah, there's times when we want to replicate an ESB and go, let's make an ESB for all the people who've got diagnosed celiac out there, and maybe they come from the UK and that's their favorite style or whatever. They like a multi beer. Sometimes we're trying to celebrate what we have and so show how it can shine in certain beers. And it's interesting because over the last few years, a lot of malts that we use in cereal format have been celebrated. I mean, we know Balter Cerveza has made a huge impact on the scene, and Cerveza brewing has become a lot more popular in craft breweries, and rice lagers as well. Just trying to think, Four Pines Rice Lager is really...
Well, that's their number one sort of flagship they push now, yeah.
Number one flagship beer. Again, raw rice is the, you know, it's not probably the main ingredient, but it's the main thing we celebrate when we're drinking that beer. So at times we're trying to make a beer that replicates what a barley consumer would experience for a gluten-free person, but at times we're trying to celebrate what we have. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've always talked about a lot. Being here is don't hide behind what we do. Kind of celebrate it to a degree and be proud of it, and recognize that. So
yeah. And Richard, was it always really important to you to have that broad range of styles? Like, I'm kind of feel like there's fewer and fewer beer styles you've made now, fewer remaining beer styles you haven't made. Like,
I think
there's not a lot of options left.
it's funny, well, because I thought we would have two beers.
Yeah.
I thought we'd have two beers in our core range, and would be delighted if we can get bottle shops to range two beers. And maybe we'd just have a whole lot of little ones that we just through the bar. And then now we do gluten-free expo events. We'll have 11 beers in cans. I'm kind of going, that's maybe a couple too many. But it's just about that variety. And again, it's I can't help it. Like, the guys will go, like, we're about to bring out a Pacific Ale, right? So I can announce this because it's been released 2 days ago, hopefully. The XPA has been with us since the start. We've deranged that, and we're bringing out a Pacific Ale because, again, it's that choice, but we can't keep expanding our core range.
Yeah.
But we want people to be able to try, you know, what's interesting and exciting about a Pacific Ale, and we think that style of beer will resonate really well with the consumer. But I really thought I'd have a pale ale and something else. Then AG says, well, you can't be a craft brewery without an IPA, or Christian did one of them.
Or the one made lentils.
Or the lentils, yeah, or the puff quinoa that we did, the saisons. You know, then we need a sour, and we got to have a stout. Yeah. So, and I love it. You know, a beer, there's a beer for every occasion. People say, what's your favorite? I don't have one, because if it's a hot day, I love the Pulp Fusion. You know, passion fruit, so you can smash that. Getting a bit colder, I love a stout on nitro down here at the brewery. The only downside really for me is that I live so close to the brewery that I've really got to go to work if I want to have a beer with my mates. And that's kind of, that's a challenging thing that I hear from a whole lot of other brewery owners too, is, you know, you got to go to work for a beer. But otherwise, yeah, I just didn't think we'd have this variety, but I think there's still plenty more that we haven't done. We're bringing out a nice, interesting one middle of this year that, you know, we talked about doing, and then I said, you know what, I really kind of like this name, not this name, but this style of beer. I'd like to try it again. And luckily the brewers sort of mutter a bit, and then they go, okay. You know, and so we'll do that, and it'll be a really nice one in carbonate. It'll be really nice on nitro. And I'm, get it. The good thing is I know what's coming, so I kind of get really excited about it. I'm looking forward to the Pacific Ale. I know what's coming in May. We have to plan, so that's the good thing.
Well, I guess because you can't go, oh, I really fancy Pacific, I'll go and grab someone else.
No.
You literally can't. You have to wait for your brewers to make that style, because
we go grab them for the guys to drink, which is nice, and they kind of then decide not which one we want to be close to, because I think the beer, I mean, even with our Cerveza, it's nothing like a Corona, but it's true to style. It's a really interesting beer, I think. Really enjoyable. The feedback's been great from the consumers. But we're not trying to copy a style. But if we want to do a Pacific Ale, then we'll look at hops from the Pacific region. And I don't know where we ended up with, but the guys will choose.
It's drier than our pale, I think, as well. So we talk about what that kind of consumer, what that person's purchasing when they're after when they want a hoppy dry experience. In my opinion, something sessionable. Beer you're going to drink before you go to the beach or on the way home. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, we chat about those things as well. I think the key thing was the XPA was very close to our pale ale. All up. We liked the name XPA, and we thought it was a fun addition to the range for sure. There'll be a lot of unhappy people. Probably
there are a lot of unhappy people,
but yeah, and then the Japanese rice lager has been the other big one, and the Aussie Ale into the GFB range as well. So
as you know, Will, right? True to form, we need low carbs as diabetics, right?
Yeah.
So we wanted a low carb beer within the range. I mean, Hahn have their gluten free, being low carb, but we wanted to do a craftier version of it. And so Christian kind of said to me, "Fucking what? You want gluten free, low carb, low alcohol? What have I got to work with?" And you wanted to be a rice lager with nowhere, But it's proven now to be, I think it's our third best-selling beer in the Two Bays range easily, and it's got a bit of distribution through the big retailers. But it's a cranky beer. The consumer loves it because so many people just like low bitter, easy drinking beers. Like something with a bit more to it, but the vast majority don't. When we did the GFB, we released that in September of 21, and that was really because from all our marketing, you can't. Well, in the beer world, 15% of the consumers, maybe if we're lucky, drink a craft beer are interested. So therefore, 85% of people don't. And we're marketing to the whole gluten-free world. And we kind of felt that we needed something for those people that don't want a craft beer. They don't want the flowers and the whatevers. They just want an easy, low bitterness, easy drinking beer. So we released our GFB draft in September 21, and perfect timing. Cost of living pressures come through. It's a lower price point. It's got great support from sort of retailers, independents. I thought it would actually go really well on premise because the LUC is lower and therefore they would do well. But a consumer, when they go out, they actually kind of want something maybe a little bit more to reward themselves, I guess. So we find that actually on premise it doesn't do as well as I'd expected. But out in retail and bottle shop land, it does. And we kind of call it, it's almost a Monday to Thursday beer, and then you got the 2 Bays on the weekend type stuff. And that seems to be the way we do a lot of online, where people will a carton of GFB and a carton of a 2 Bays or a mixture of cartons so that they can have that sort of variety that they want.
And then so the millet-based beers, the 2 Bays brand stuff, all works off our malted extracts, which non-extracts. So it's just malt that we buy from the US. Malted millet, malted buckwheat, malted rice, which comes from a different supplier, malted corn in smaller amounts. And they can be roasted and made to different, similar varieties to what barley can be as well. But the cost of those, I'm going to hand over to Richard.
Yeah, so it's probably 7 times the price of a barley malt.
Wow.
So I was listening to Marsden last week and he's got nothing to whinge about. Basically, 7 times. So we start with an ingredient, and obviously beer is, dare I say, 40% tax, and water and everything else that goes in it. But, it's when you're starting with the barley malt, 7 times the price. So, for us to bring $1 per litre is significantly above a barley, which is why we don't even try to compete on price. We're just, it's pointless. And the guys in the US that have tried, it's just a recipe for disaster, because maybe they don't have the shipping issues that we do, but the raw grain still costs them the same. So you're starting with that price point. And therefore, we also wanted something that was maybe a bit more affordable. So the GFB range has allowed us to have a price point that's lower. We do it in 24 cans because we think the consumer is much more a slab buyer rather than a cube buyer. And it's just...
And they're built upon the extract instead.
Yes, it's sorghum and rice extract will make the GFB and Aussie ale. So we had the draft and the Aussie ale and the GFB range. So it is a cheaper extract, is an essential thing. And there's competitors that exist that use those products to brew those beers. The main difference would be ours is brewed in a gluten-free only environment. So they and us both get celiac endorsement if they go down that path. They can do that, but ours is brewed in a facility that only makes gluten-free beer.
Plus, I think you brew a better beer.
Well, maybe.
But it was a fantastic. And I said earlier, it's about 30% of what we do now is the GFB brand. And what I find the most exciting is the consumer will actually grab one of both. And both brands, and we're miles above price point of our closest gluten-free competitor, let alone a barley beer. But the consumer will do that because they want to enjoy the flavor of beer, and beer is such an exciting product and what it can do, and therefore they don't want to miss out on that experience either. So
at the time, I think like seltzers were the popular thing, and a lot of the breweries started to brew seltzers to supplement, some loss in brewing, I suppose, because coming into COVID and those sorts of things. And we did talk about that, and I was very much against it. I think if Richard remember, I said that we should play to our strengths and we should really stick within gluten-free range. So why not make just a second, a more cheaper product within our range and just use the sorghum extract, take what we've learned in fermentation and apply that to these beers. And I think that we'll be able to get a product that is really, really good. It may be just a draft type beer. It may be a more boring beer and less crafty, 100%. But it's no different to, I think, a lot of barley breweries out there offering, like a American style draft beer where they get 20% corn or whatever, and do that to do a lower cost, more domestic lager style beer. We just did that using sorghum rather than our millet based brews.
Yeah, I bought 4 or 5 seltzers thinking, will we go that market? And they sat in the fridge, and I never drank them through them out. It was what we wanted
that was
to
my
do.
key point. Do you drink them?
There's no way I was going to convince Christian to brew them. And so we wanted to stick with the beer. Beer is fabulous. There's so much we can do with it. There's so many people that can't get access to it. There's so many people that, don't fully understand the beautiful flavors you can get in it. So we figured we'll just stick to that. Yeah. And the community's great.
And just coming back to something you were saying earlier in terms of challenges, sort of like obviously you're saying the temperature control, the pilot system, different extract, going to different, I guess, weighting of certain, malts in a recipe. Are there other sort of key challenges you've come up against, or that you do come up against, brewing with these ingredients?
Yes, pretty much non-stop.
Don't list all of them. We don't have time.
No, because I think people will be keen, not only is are the base costs higher, but in terms of like the challenges that you face.
So efficiency, that would be an initial thing that Richard wanted me to look at. Sort of AG passing on the baton. That was number one thing was, where are we at with efficiency? So being able to convert the starch into sugar better, essentially.
That was massive.
Getting more of it, I think, led to huge increases in what we could yield straight away. I think it also, to a degree, started to improve some of the flavors. It just made them cleaner. They still did taste gluten-free, but you got to be careful of starch carrying through the process for a number of reasons. But the fermentation issues, they're really ongoing. Depending on the recipe formulation, changes the dynamic and how we deliver the nutrients for the yeast in that environment. There's no stripping or any process downstream that picks up those things. Really, you have to try and target a clean fermentation all the time, and that's probably our greatest challenge on a day-to-day. Brewers are constantly talking about this. So zinc deficiencies and acetaldehyde is a common thing. So gluten-free beer shouldn't taste like cider or cidery, in my opinion. And that was one of the early things that I think that I spoke to Richard about, is that I think that they are fixable and there's a lot of work that can be done in this department. But then there's a lot of challenges regarding, head retention and mouthfeel. I think we've significantly improved on those things. I think the mouthfeel of the beer is much more textural, more similar to barley, and we'll keep working on that. I think the head retention is great on the tap point, and we've made huge points. I think it's sometimes in the cans we still struggle.
And is that through changing process? Is it through additional adjuncts that help on those fronts?
Well, everything we use is an adjunct, depending on how you look at it.
True.
But it's not a thing we get on the purity list. I don't think it's water and yeast and hops. But it's in the malt department, it's all adjunct. But 100%. Yeah. So and we're talking about it all the time. It's like the number one thing we like to tease with the brewers. And so every time we get the opportunity to brew a new beer and it's going to the pilot system, we might test something new each time. A lot of it's trial and error. A lot of it's talking to people and trying to get some expert knowledge or scientists. A lot of it's some of it's probably luck to a degree. But we're teasing that.
So it's luck as long as you can work out what it was that
as long as it's
was different that time.
But and there's regularly brewers come to me and say, have you tried this? Have you tried Tetra Hop? Have you tried nitrogen carbonation? It's like, we've tried a lot of things. Trust me. So I think our principal things that we're looking at the moment are to new grains that are Australian, working with more raw grains. So with the Cerveza, we've got corn coming from Australia and New Zealand on a gluten-free, certified mill, and the rice, which comes in whole grain from the Riverina, which is also, they publish they have a gluten-free certificate that they release. But where will it go next? Who knows? But definitely process driven. It's definitely obscure, I would say, for the regular brewer. But none of our brewers. It's not like we put out an ad for a new job and expect other gluten-free brewers to apply. Everyone comes in from the barley brewing world, and we've got to work them through what our process is and how we do that.
I'm sure that appeals to some part of you, though. Like in particular, your approach to brewing. I'm sure you love that problem solving and that sort of deeper technical
definitely.
kind of thing.
There's been times when I haven't slept because of crying babies and stuff, and just think, fuck me, why aren't we mashing in with barley today? There's been practical elements that it's sort of like the brewhouse is bought before we got to any major production and before I was even here. So we had stainless steel welders come through and cut holes and drill here, and I'm like, we need this. It's like,
he's got the most accommodating boss there.
A lot of retrofitting.
I'm a strong negotiator, I would say. I need to cut in here, and we need this thing. So, and then the brewers, I think they really enjoy a lot of aspects of it. I'm sure they have. We try to always manage it so that whatever we say in the contract and their hours per day are the same. We're only doing 2 brews a day. I think in Mornington we were 3. I imagine Hop Nation got to 4 within. The new owners came in. I imagine they got to 4 within a pretty short amount of time. It's not abnormal for barley breweries at a production level to be doing 4 in a day. So we've always tried to.
Can we do 3?
Yeah, well, maybe one day. But currently our mash regime is really, really long. And we're always trying to make a really good environment from our brewers. We're taking the team to IBD in a couple of weeks. Free plug for you guys, being the sponsors there. But that's super exciting to be able to do that and take the team over, and hopefully they'll put 2 Bays shirts on and chat to a few people and get a few questions and be able to answer and say, well, actually at 2 Bays we do things really differently. Whereas I don't know that, a lot of good work going on out there, but mostly people are talking how you dry hop your meepers or how are you brewing your latest, pastry stout or smoothie sour or whatever it is. Our process is definitely different. It's definitely unique to us, even chatting to brewers in the US. And I said to Richard, I'm surprised people didn't ask more questions. And I think the reason was because I hadn't tasted our beer. And then they saw us walk on stage at the.
Like, Mr.
Now we don't answer their phone calls.
Not true.
There's a consultancy fee that comes with it.
No.
It wasn't like that, but it's just astounding to hear how people are using the same raw ingredients. But it is really worlds apart in terms of how they turn that into a product downstream. And then some fantastic beers that we had as well. And that's the other thing. There was no the big epiphany I think I was looking for was walking into a gluten-free brew pub and seeing this amazing, outstanding head retention across the board. And I think we're all still working on that. It is
Epiphany plus also, damn it can be done.
Yes.
I've got to
we
work
chase
it out.
that. We chase that all the time. But it's not just the head retention. I really think texture is a big part of it. And I think we've come a long way in that regard. You don't get the sort of soda watery bubbles. I think that were an initial thing that I kind of observed in the beers. I think acetaldehyde is relatively low. We're able to make hop flavors shine, which I don't think you can do without having a healthy fermentation. And off the brew house, the process is relative to when I was at Mornington and other craft breweries that I talk to all the time. We still give the IPA 2 dry hops and chill it for X amount of days, and it moves along the process. It's not like we're getting up there and feeding this birdseed beer nutrients to the top.
Cut that out.
bit of baby bio.
But we don't have to get milk formula or anything like that. So it's not complicated.
Yeah, well, I think that's sort of talking of challenges and lessons. This could be a good time to end our final trio of questions.
Yes, we should wrap up. I mean, looking back at the past first, Richard, if there was one thing you could sort of tell yourself in the past before you started all this, what would it be?
Set your expectations probably a little lower.
She was saying to us
and you've
before-
got a beer in the G.
And I've got to correct her, which I tell you, I'm the only Jeffers that has that, right? So, which is very good from a bragging right perspective. In fact, I've got the only craft beer in there. But I think the thing that surprised me, I came from a commercial world before, and I was saying to James earlier, I honestly thought we'd go in there, you'd meet some procurement guy somewhere or a category manager or whatever. They go, yep, we need a gluten-free beer, and if you were the one, you would just get rolled out. Yeah. And the difference we found is that yes, we're the one, and we are the preferred gluten-free beer. Now they say go and speak to the 300 venue managers we've got that actually probably change every 2 or 3 weeks anyway, and sell in each cycle. So that side of it has surprised me from a growth perspective. And we've been very fortunate because we have got some interesting, some really iconic places that we've been able to get into that other people would be incredibly jealous and would love to have their beers there. But at the same time, that's probably, it's just, it's not this world. And the world's been, like we started in 2019, really. 2019, we worked to get our beer around Australia. 2022, 2020, they shut Australia down. Same for 21. And then we've had cost of living. So no year's been perfect, but I think that's just business. I mean, no year's ever been perfect, I don't think.
And what about if someone was entering the industry now? Is there any advice you'd like to give them about beer? Set your expectations lower, I guess.
brew pub.
Yeah.
I would think I'd say the days of wholesale, the noise you're getting back from the big retailers around not only putting their own beers in there, but also around how much shelf space they're allocating to beer generally. I think the model of staying hyper local, looking after your community, the regional guys that are out there, and that's why we are so important and why I guess as an industry we're fighting so hard. But the guys that are regional, looking after Mount Beauty, with Crankhandle or whatever it might be, I mean, that's just where I think you could still have a very successful business model. But you are largely you got to love hospitality because that's a different beast to everything else. You got to love hospitality and you got to work very hard at it. But don't the days of thinking I'm going to start here and I'm going to sell my beers around Australia are, I'd say for the vast majority of brewers, not going to happen. And therefore be happy, love hospitality, love dealing with the community, support the community, and they'll look after you.
Yeah. And I guess the last one, we almost get one from each of you. Your one hope or dream for beer in Australia looking forward.
You go first.
Yeah, you go first.
I'm becoming political at the moment because with all that's going on, but I think this just treat us the same as every other alcohol choice.
Yeah.
I think this idea of forcing beer to be more expensive than it needs to be at the substitution of something else makes it a product that then becomes harder to afford. And we were talking about it at the G. I think our cans and all beer cans are $14 or something at the G. I mean that's a lot of money to drop. And I mean, I've sat there in the crowd listening to people coming and say, I've just done 4 cans, my shout, that just cost me about $60.
Yeah.
And they go, well, we're not going back for a second. And you're kind of going, well, So you sit on one beer for the whole of the 4 hours because you can't afford to go back and have a second. And I think that's the thing. So for me, it's around, making it affordable. It can be drunk responsibly. It doesn't, it's not about drinking and over drinking or anything like that. It's just about bringing people together over a beer and whatever, and just don't penalize the beer community in that. So that's what I'd love.
Bit of fairness.
Not going to happen, but it's what I'd love. But we'll see. We'll see.
Is it make more saison?
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah. You can do it here anytime you
Really,
like.
for the beer industry, in Australia, I just want to see more opportunities for the career-based brewers. I mean, COVID was challenging. The last few years have been challenging. I've seen more people that I considered, really knowledgeable brewers leave the industry over the last 6 months than I probably have over COVID. And I think that's sad. And I'm watching, a lot of breweries in a tough economical situation. But just even that alone has overshadowed, I think, some of the work, Will, you did, expose kind of stuff, looking into brewers and some of the challenges they face within the industry, and how they, industry burnout, and some of the other themes that you covered have sort of been lost in this debate. And a lot of the peers, a lot of people I speak to, they're in really challenging situations. They're unsure about the future, and that's hard. I remember coming into Tube's, security was a huge thing. We sat down to a job interview, and I think Richard thought he was interviewing me, but he found out later he was not.
Yeah, I did actually.
And I'd been off the back of the Mornington situation. I'd made a full team of people redundant in the industry, and that was hard. And losing my own job in that process as well, pouring down a barrel program which had saisons in it, which I think would have tasted absolutely fantastic, Will. And Flemish Reds that never came to fruition. I've still got some in kegs that shed at my home. And
that would keep you up at night.
Well, no, I mean,
nothing because you still got some at home.
Nothing compared to displacing a full team of people. And it's been great to see some of those people relocating into other jobs. But I think that to get there, a lot of those career brewers have to take risk. Mm-hmm. You've got Harry with Love Shack in Castlemaine. He was one of those team. He took that risk on himself. He's like, if I want to have a sustainable job in this industry, I'm going to need to take risk on myself. And you look at a lot of these larger breweries or mid-sized breweries that have been through voluntary administration. It usually doesn't come with redundancy. Some of those people being made redundant might find themselves like me. They've got 3 months before their wife gives birth, so they've got to find another job in an industry that I'd say that has less ads than it has a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So this is the back end of, I think, where we're at with the tax situation, and I'm very much following the debate all the time. I think it just feels like repetitive words all the time, but holy hell, we need to fix that shit. Mm-hmm. And we want to see the smaller businesses, the mid-sized breweries and all the breweries do well, so that you can come into brewing and have a career. I've been
security with it. Yeah.
Super lucky where I was at. I was very much about interviewing Richard and being sure about the direction of the company. I was interested in value added. So looking at something that I thought was going to grow. Ultimately, looking back, I took a punt on Tube's, and I thought that there was room to improve it, and I thought there was a vision, and I thought it was authentic. And I think that what we've done with the awards, not just the World Beer Cup, but also being able to get a trophy at the Independence, where we fall into a group category, and gluten-free is just one. So the other beers that we've taken down on the trophy tables have been barley-based beers. Adds to the credibility of the story, and it's helped with the success, and that's the way I see it. So ultimately, if I saw the industry change, it would be more security for the career-based brewers, the aspiring brewers, as well, to be able to enter the industry and make it long-term and have a secure job.
Great. I couldn't think of a better place to end it. Christian and Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming down to the craft beer capital of Australia.
He's remembered to end on a high note too.
I'm waiting for the guys from Queensland to call me any day now.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, sales reps, have you ever thought about how much time you spend on admin? Entering orders that come in over email, SMS, phone, or even Instagram messages? Could that time be better spent on the road, meeting new customers, running tastings, and building the brand? That's what it's all about, right? Well, that's where FOBO can help. Developed by people who are far smarter than I am, Phobo have created an AI platform that can read and process all of your customer orders instantaneously, no matter how they come in. Maybe Bill's Bottle Shop have sent you a text message saying, "Same as last week, mate." Or Ted's Tavern with an email, "Give me a keg of pale." No matter how casual the message, Phobo's AI has been taught to speak the language of beer ordering. Give the team at Phobo a call and let them help you get back to what you do best, meeting new customers and looking after your existing ones. Visit Phobo, that's foboh.com.au/crafty-pint and complete the brief form to find out more. And now, back to the podcast.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.